Nobody believed Muhammad Ali could survive. Not the experts, not the journalists, not even Ali's own corner. George Foreman was not just a boxer. He was a destroyer. He had knocked out Joe Frazier into rounds. He had demolished Ken Norton in the same fashion. These were the same men who had beaten Ali. And now, in the heart of Africa, in a stadium filled with 60,000 screaming fans, George Foreman was supposed to end Muhammad Ali forever. But something happened that night. Something nobody saw coming. Something that would haunt George Foreman for years. And something that would prove to the world that heart, mind, and strategy can defeat raw power. This is the story of the rumble in the jungle. This is the story of how one man refused to be destroyed. And this is the story of how George Foreman learned the most painful lesson of his life. Let me take you back to the beginning. Before the glory, before the fame, before the fear in every opponent's eyes. George Foreman was just a boy from Marshall, Texas, born on January 10, 1949. His family was poor, very poor. His mother worked hard, but there was never enough food on the table. George grew up angry. He grew up hungry, and he grew up fighting on the streets. He was not a good kid. He would rob people. He would hurt people. He had no direction, no purpose, no hope. By the time he was 15, George Foreman was heading toward prison or death. That was his path, until one man changed everything. His name was Doc Broadus. He ran a Job Corps center in California. George joined the program hoping to escape his old life, and there, he discovered boxing. The first time he hit a heavy bag, something clicked inside him. All that anger, all that pain, all that hunger, it finally had somewhere to go. George trained like a man possessed. He was big, he was strong, he was terrifying, and within a few years, he was representing his country at the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City. He won the gold medal in the heavyweight division, and he did something that night that made all of America love him. After his victory, he waved a small American flag in the ring. This was during a time of protest and division. But George did not care about politics. He was just a poor kid who finally had something to be proud of. That moment made him a hero. After the Olympics, George turned professional. And he did not just win. He destroyed. His punches were like sledgehammers. His opponents fell like trees. 1 round, 2 rounds, sometimes less. Nobody could stand in front of him. By 1973, George Foreman was the heavyweight champion of the world. He took the title from Joe Frazier in Jamaica, and the way he did it sent shockwaves through boxing. He knocked Frazier down 6 times in less than 2 rounds. 6 times. Joe Frazier was one of the toughest men alive, and George made him look like a child. The world watched in disbelief. This man was not human. He was a monster, and everyone believed he was unbeatable. Meanwhile, Muhammad Ali was struggling. He had lost 3.5 years of his prime. The government had taken away his license to box because he refused to go to war in Vietnam. He said it was against his religion. He said he had no quarrel with the Vietnamese people, and for that, they stripped him of his title. They tried to break him, but Ali never broke. He came back in 1970, older and slower, but still dangerous. He lost to Joe Frazier in 1971. He lost to Ken Norton in 1973. His jaw was broken in that fight. Many people said Ali was finished. They said the old lion had lost his roar. But Ali kept talking. He kept fighting. And he kept believing. In 1974, the impossible happened. A promoter named Don King arranged the biggest fight in boxing history, Muhammad Ali versus George Foreman, for the heavyweight championship of the world. The location was Kinshasa, Zaire, now known as the Democratic Republic of Congo. The president of Zaire, Mobutu Sese Seko, put up $10 million, $5 million for each fighter. It was the richest prize in sports history at that time. They called it the Rumble in the Jungle, and the whole world was watching. Ali arrived in Africa like a king returning home. He understood something George did not. He understood the power of connection. From the moment he stepped off the plane, Ali embraced the African people. He walked through the streets. He talked to children. He learned local phrases. He chanted with the crowds, and the people of Zaire fell in love with him. They would shout Ali, Bame, everywhere he went. It meant Ali, kill him. George Foreman made a terrible mistake. He brought his German Shepherd dogs with him in Zaire. Those dogs were a painful reminder of Belgian colonial police who used similar dogs to attack African people. The crowd turned against Foreman immediately. He did not understand why. He felt isolated, alone, hated, and for the first time in his career, George Foreman felt doubt creeping into his mind. The fight was originally scheduled for September 25, 1974, but during training, Foreman suffered a cut above his eye from a sparring partner's elbow. The fight was postponed for 6 weeks. Those 6 weeks changed everything. Ali used that time wisely. He studied Foreman, he planned, he strategized, and most importantly, he got inside Foreman's head. Ali would appear at Foreman's training sessions. He would shout insults. He would call him slow. He would call him stupid. He would call him a bully who could not think. Foreman tried to ignore it, but the words got inside him. They planted seeds of anger, and anger makes men stupid. October 30th, 1974. 4 o'clock in the morning, the stadium was packed. 60,000 fans screaming under the African sky. The air was thick and hot. Humidity wrapped around everything like a wet blanket. This was Ali's plan. He insisted on the early morning time. He knew Foreman was not used to such heat. He knew the conditions would drain the bigger man faster. Every small detail mattered, and Ali had thought of everything. George Foreman entered the ring first. He looked terrifying. His body was carved from stone. His eyes were cold. His fists were weapons. He had knocked out 40 of his previous opponents. 40. He had never gone past the 8th round as a professional. He did not need to. Everyone fell before him. Tonight would be no different, or so he thought. When Muhammad Ali entered the ring, the crowd erupted. Ali Bame, Ali Bame. The chant shook the stadium. Foreman looked around and saw nothing but hatred in their eyes. For him, the champion, the most feared man on the planet, and somehow, he was the villain. The bell rang, and what happened next shocked everyone. Ali did not run. He did not dance. He did not float like a butterfly. Instead, he walked straight toward George Foreman, and he hit him with a right hand, hard, right on the forehead. The punch was a message. It said, "I am not afraid of you." Foreman was stunned, not hurt, but confused. This was not supposed to happen. Ali was supposed to be scared. Ali was supposed to run, but here he was, standing flat-footed, throwing punches like a man with nothing to lose. The first round was wild. Ali threw bombs. Foreman threw bombs. Both men stood in the center of the ring and traded. At the end of the round, Ali went back to his corner. His trainer, Angelo Dundee, was screaming, "What are you doing? You cannot fight him like that. You will get killed. Move, dance, use your speed." Ali just smiled. He said, "Trust me. I know what I am doing." Dundee did not understand. Nobody understood, but Ali had a plan. A plan he had told no one. In the second round, everything changed. Ali walked to the ropes, and he leaned back. He covered his face with his gloves. He tucked his elbows against his ribs, and he let George Foreman hit him again and again and again. The crowd gasped. The commentators screamed. Ali's corner was in panic. What was he doing? Was he trying to die? Foreman saw his chance. He unleashed everything he had. Left hooks, right hands, uppercuts, body shots. He threw punches with bad intentions. Punches meant to end careers. Punches meant to end lives. And Ali just stood there, taking them all. But here is what nobody saw. The ropes in that ring were different. They were looser than normal. Some say Ali's team had arranged this. When Foreman threw his punches, Ali would lean back into the ropes. The ropes would absorb some of the impact, and Ali would use his arms and gloves to block the most dangerous shots. He was not taking clean punches. He was surviving, and more importantly, he was making George Foreman work harder than Foreman had ever worked in his life. Between rounds, Ali would whisper to Foreman, "Is that all you got, George? I thought you could punch. My grandmother hits harder than you." Foreman would get angry, and angry fighters make mistakes. They punch harder. They punch faster. They waste energy. And that is exactly what George Foreman did. Round after round, he threw everything at Ali, and round after round, Ali absorbed it, laughed at him, and told him he was nothing. By the 5th round, something strange was happening. George Foreman was slowing down. His punches had less pop. His feet were heavy. His breathing was labored. The heat, the humidity, the constant punching, it was draining him like a battery losing power. Ali noticed. Of course he noticed. Ali noticed everything. And now, he began to fight back. Quick combinations, sharp jabs, right hands that snapped Foreman's head back. The hunter was becoming the hunted. Foreman could not understand what was happening. He had hit Ali with his best shots, shots that had knocked out every other man he faced. But Ali was still standing, still talking, still fighting. For the first time in his career, George Foreman felt fear, real fear, not fear of losing, fear of the unknown. He had entered a dimension he did not understand, and he had no map to find his way out. The 8th round began. Both men were tired, but Ali was smarter tired. Foreman threw a lazy right hand. Ali slipped it beautifully, and then he countered. A left hook, then a straight right hand. The right hand landed flush on Foreman's jaw. His eyes went blank. His legs turned to rubber. He stumbled backward. Another right hand. Foreman was falling, slowly, like a giant tree cut at the base. He hit the canvas. The referee began to count. 1, 2, 3. Foreman tried to rise. 4, 5. His legs would not obey. 6, 7. He was on one knee. 8, 9. He was up, but too late. 10. Muhammad Ali had done the impossible. He had knocked out the most feared puncher in boxing history. The stadium exploded. Ali Bame, Ali Bame. The chant echoed into the African night. Ali ran around the ring with his hands raised. The king had reclaimed his throne, and George Foreman lay on the canvas, staring at the lights, wondering what had just happened to his life. In the years that followed, George Foreman was a broken man. He did not just lose a fight that night. He lost his identity. He lost his belief in himself. He thought he was invincible, and Ali had proved he was mortal. Foreman became bitter, angry. He blamed everyone except himself. He blamed the ropes. He blamed the heat. He blamed the referee. He blamed the cut that postponed the fight. He could not accept the simple truth. He had been outfought, and outclassed by a genius. Foreman continued boxing, but his heart was not in it. In 1977, he lost to Jimmy Young in a close decision. After that fight, something happened in the dressing room. Foreman collapsed. He felt like he was dying. He saw darkness, and in that darkness, he said he had a religious experience. He said he met God. When he woke up, he was a different man. He retired from boxing immediately. He became a preacher. He opened a youth center in Houston, Texas. He dedicated his life to helping troubled kids, just like he had once been. For 10 years, George Foreman did not throw a single punch in a boxing ring. But life has a way of writing sequels nobody expects. By 1987, George Foreman was broke. His youth center needed money. His church needed money. His family needed money. And the only skill he had that could generate that kind of income was the one he had abandoned: boxing. So at the age of 38, after 10 years away, George Foreman announced his comeback. The world laughed. He was old. He was fat. He weighed over 300 pounds. His belly hung over his shorts. Nobody took him seriously. But George did not care about their laughter. He had something to prove, not to them, to himself. Foreman fought his way through the heavyweight division, slowly, methodically. He was not the same fighter. He was slower, less mobile, but his power was still there. His mind was sharper, and his heart was bigger than ever. In 1994, at the age of 45, George Foreman got a shot at the heavyweight title against Michael Moorer, a young champion, fast, skilled, dangerous. Nobody gave Foreman a chance. The odds were massively against him, just like they had been against Ali 20 years earlier. The fight was brutal. Moorer outboxed Foreman for 9 rounds. He was winning clearly on all scorecards. Foreman looked tired, old, finished, but in the 10th round, something magical happened. Foreman threw a right hand, the same right hand that had failed him against Ali, but this time, it landed perfectly. Moorer collapsed like he had been shot. The referee counted to 10, and George Foreman, at 45 years old, became the oldest heavyweight champion in boxing history. He fell to his knees in the center of the ring, tears streaming down his face. 20 years of doubt, 20 years of questions, 20 years of wondering what went wrong in Zaire, and finally, redemption. Not revenge, redemption. George Foreman had proven that failure is not final. That age is just a number, that the human spirit can overcome anything if the heart is strong enough. Years later, George Foreman was asked about that night in Zaire, about Ali, about the loss that haunted him, and his answer showed how much he had grown. He said Muhammad Ali was the greatest fighter he ever faced, not because of his speed, Not because of his power, but because of his mind. Ali had beaten him before they even entered the ring. The crowd, the heat, the mind games, the rope-a-dope, every single detail was planned, and Foreman had walked right into the trap. He said losing to Ali was the best thing that ever happened to him. It broke his ego. It humbled him. It forced him to find God. It forced him to become a better man. Muhammad Ali and George Foreman became friends in their later years. Real friends. They would talk on the phone. They would visit each other. They shared something nobody else could understand. The bond of warriors who had tested each other in the ultimate arena. When Ali was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, Foreman was one of his biggest supporters. He spoke about Ali with love and respect. He called him brother. He said the world would never see another Muhammad Ali, and he was right. So what is the lesson of this story? What can we learn from that hot African night in 1974? Perhaps it is this: power is not everything. The strongest man does not always win. The smartest man does. The one who prepares, the one who thinks, the one who refuses to give up even when the whole world says he is finished. Muhammad Ali was supposed to lose that night. Every expert said so. Every number said so. Every logical analysis said so. But Ali believed in himself. He had a plan, and he executed it perfectly. Sometimes in life, you will face opponents who seem unbeatable, problems that seem unsolvable, mountains that seem unclimbable. But if you think, if you prepare, if you believe, you can shock the world too. George Foreman learned this lesson the hard way. He lost his title. He lost his identity. He lost his way. But he found something more valuable. He found himself. He found God. He found purpose. And 20 years later, he found redemption. Both men won that night in Zaire. Ali won the fight, but Foreman won something greater. He won the chance to become who he was meant to be. And maybe that is the greatest victory of all. The Rumble in the Jungle was not just a boxing match. It was a story about human will, about strategy defeating strength, about age defeating youth, about mind defeating body, about a man who refused to be destroyed standing against a man who had destroyed everyone. And 50 years later, we still talk about it. We still study it. We still marvel at it. Because great stories never die. They echo through history. They inspire generations. They remind us what is possible when we believe. This was the night Ali shocked the world. This was the night Foreman learned his greatest lesson. And this was the night that boxing became more than a sport. It became poetry. It became art. It became legend.